Oh, good morning. It's 8 a.m. Good morning, Jen.
Good morning. How are you?
Well,
Great.
we have snow, but it isn't 24 inches. I could walk to the barn without yeah, it isn't 24, but it's nice. So hopefully
It
that's
was a
going to help.
significant amount.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely decent. Yeah, so let's start with commissioner updates. Commissioner Chang.
Um, I don't have a whole lot of updates, state legislative updates this week. I see that the wolf depredation compensation bill, it sounds like is not moving forward anymore. Jen can give us some more details on that, or Doug. Still trying to track Senate Bill 1511, that wildfire bill that will provide technical and financial assistance to landowners. But that's about it.
I can
Okay,
give a quick update on the House bill, or we can wait till we go through the bill tracker. I did remove it from the bill track, or it's I guess it's not highlighted in there, but I can give a quick update when we go through the bill tracker on that one.
I was on the EOCA call or the 7 a.m. call Tuesday morning, and the wolf bill was dead at that point in time. So the other bill, the elk bill, the pilot project bill, I believe that still may be going ahead, but of course they're only selecting one county on this side of the mountain and one county on the other side of the mountain to do a 5-year study. Before then, they can determine how many thousands of dollars the wolves or the elk do when they get into your hay barn. And one of my friends in Hebner had 500 elk at their house this December, and boy, did they do a lot of damage. So, yeah, it sounds like it's going to take another decade to get anything accomplished. Um, is Commissioner DeBonne, there you are. Would you like to update with anything?
Good morning. So yeah, the capital construction bill 5201, I signed up for testimony on that. It sounds like Ed Fitch and also Tammy Bainey had signed up, so we might coordinate a little bit more on that. I don't know if we need all of us. I think Shelby Knight mentioned from COIC that she signed the two of them up at noon, and then I did it at 3:30. So as I say, I might just walk away from that testimony since we'll be well covered. But that's for discussion and guidance by our lobbyist, Doug Riggs. That's all.
Okay. Great, yes. And I did provide testimony on House Joint Resolution 201 about the property tax, having the state do another tax, like this state doesn't have enough taxes. Anyway, I believe over 1,200 people testified on that. Interesting. All right, there is Doug. Doug, would you like to give us some more updates from Salem?
Sure. Thanks, Commissioner, and good morning. Happy Friday. Glad to see some snow over there this weekend in the Cascades. That's always a good thing. More snow, more water. That's great. Just a quick update where we are in the session. Most committees have completed their business on bills in their chamber. A few committees have until Monday to complete work sessions on bills. And then we will have a much better sense which bills will be alive and which bills are going to be dead. I don't know the exact number yet, but we'll rerun a tracking report on Tuesday. The budget process is heating up. There are many proposals that are coming out of committee on the housing issue. Senate Bill 1537, which is the governor's housing bill, and Senate Bill 1530, which is a key funding bill, both came out of the Senate Housing Committee on Wednesday. They're heading to Ways and Means along with a variety of bills, including House Bill 4134, which is an infrastructure housing funding bill. And then Ways and Means will work its magic. So as Commissioner DeBonne mentioned, when capital construction begins to take public testimony that the end is near, and the end is, within 2 or 3 weeks away. So that first public hearing is today. And I think a lot of discussions will take place over this weekend and next weekend. The rumor in the building is that they're going to be out of session by March 5th. So 5 days early. We'll see if they hold to that. That was an old Peter Courtney tactic. He'd predict an early adjournment, and that put pressure on people to get their act in gear. I think one of the biggest issues that remains is the behavioral health measure 110 issue. That's probably going to be in House Bill 4002. Everyone agrees that the treatment programs and interventions need to continue and be funded effectively and adequately. The debate is really on two issues. Number one is the level of misdemeanor, and number two is the so-called deflection program. There was an article in the Capitol Chronicle this week quoting from the Supreme Court justices and the appeals court justices down the line, raising some questions about how deflection would be managed. And in that vein, there was a hearing in the Addictions Committee this past week on a variety of programs at the local level that made a difference in communities. And I really want to highlight Holly's testimony. Was very well received, very clear. She sat on the dais with Rick Trailevin and from Best Care, and the two of them did an excellent job in talking about the collaborative local community-based solutions that Central Oregon is coming up with. So terrific testimony. Also in that hearing, right after, there was a presentation on community corrections. As you recall, we've got a $16 million statewide collaborative request with all the other counties, and then discussion on aid and assist as well. So lots of issues impacting the county being discussed here this week in Salem. So I think I'll turn it back to Jen, and she's going to run us through the bill tracking list.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Doug. And some of these bills, if you could provide further insight if we need, please feel free to pipe in there. So we'll just start from the top here. We're going to go through the highlighted bills. The first two up are for Eric Kropp. First one is HB 4029. I think Eric's going to provide some background on relevance to the county on this one.
Thanks, Jen. This stemmed out of a court case out of Multnomah County. They run shelters, and they have a family-only shelter, and then they have a adult shelter. There was a woman in the adult-only shelter who was pregnant. As she got closer to her due date, Multnomah County wanted to move her to the family shelter. She sued for on a basis of discrimination based on family status, and I'm not sure if she won or not, but Multnomah County is concerned that this sets a precedent where they would need to merge their adult only and their family shelters. We don't obviously operate a shelter, but I can check in with the city of Bend to see if they're following this bill and have a position. Otherwise, I would recommend just a 2-watch.
What is the purpose of this bill, though, Eric?
It is to allow Multnomah County to continue their adult only and family shelter unit in cases, I guess, of a pregnancy.
Okay. All right.
I support that position too. It sounds like kind of a liability definition bill, who's for clarity in the future. So I support that to monitor, I guess, is the position.
It would be interesting to know what the court actually ruled in that case. So if that's available. So is the next one yours too, Eric?
Yeah, this one is SB 1576. It started out as a measure to direct the Oregon Judicial Department to study civil matters. Pretty broad role there. And then it went through several several amendments. One amendment changed it so that it would allow some small county courts to transfer probate jurisdiction to the circuit courts. And then the most recent amendment really changes the bill to protect recreational immunity, which is a good thing. Recreational immunity allows public agencies to allow recreation on public lands, and as long as they don't charge a fee or there's some other requirements. If somebody is injured on the land, the public agency has immunity from litigation or lawsuits. So recreational immunity is certainly something that we should support. So I would recommend a two position and support, but also we need to keep watching it because each dash amendment has drastically changed this bill.
Definitely.
And I
Sounds like-
support that.
I see Doug's hand up on this one and then Commissioner Chang's as well.
Okay, Doug, what would you like to say?
Yeah, just a quick echo of what Eric just mentioned, which is this has become the recreational immunity bill. The Dash 10 amendment, which is going to be adopted on Monday, includes a 1-year extension for recreational immunity for public entities like cities and counties, park districts, etc. There is a pending court case on this issue. And according to my contacts at AOC and LOC, there's a fairly decent chance that the court will actually rule in favor of recreational immunity continuing as a standard for cities and counties. Not absolutely sure. So what this bill does is it kind of continues the opportunity for cities and counties and park districts to keep their parks open, including walking, bicycling, etc. Without the fear of being shut down because of lawsuits. And then depending on which way the court case goes, that will guide the legislature in determining what steps to take in the 2025 session.
Thank you. Commissioner Chang?
Yeah, I've been tracking the recreational immunity issue, and I definitely would like us to weigh in favor of maintaining recreational immunity for local governments. I'm not really sure how much applicability it has for Deschutes County. We only have a couple of teeny little parks right now. The one in the middle of the fairgrounds and Worrell Park. But given the circumstances, the case that kind of triggered all of this legislative action and judicial action, I do wonder whether if someone is walking on the sidewalk along the edge of Worrell Park, and they slip and they fall, whether they could say that that the county has some liability, or similarly, if someone is trying to get from the parking lot to a building in the middle of the fairgrounds and they slip and fall in the middle of that teeny little park in the middle, whether there are issues for us. So it's hard to say how relevant this is for us, but just as a principle for our fellow local governments, I think it's a really important thing for us to support.
Right. So thank you for that, Eric. All right.
And then before we move on to the assessor's office, I can talk quickly on Bill 4071, which has been dropped from here because it's no longer an active bill.
Go ahead.
That's the one on the Wolf Committee. So yesterday I was in a Ranching with Wolves workshop, and John Williams from the Oregon Cattlemen's Association, who's also the co-chair of the statewide Wolf Committee, talked about this bill briefly. It was brought up first last year, and again this year. They're going to try to make a big push for it next year in the full session. But we briefly talked about this last week. But this is it's a multiplier bill for cattle, for ranchers who have lost cattle, and assuming that their depredation impact is more than just one livestock. So it seems to have a universal support from ODF&W, ODA, and from the Oregon Cattlemen's Association. So we'll keep a watch on it for next year. Doug, I don't know if you have any further information on why it didn't get a hearing this year, but.
Yeah, I watched part of the hearing, and the opposition comes from some in the environmental community and some of the animal rights advocates. But I kind of think that I agree with you that we're likely to see a push towards a compromise and a bill in 2025.
Yes, and in the meantime, what, 3 wolves were killed in Klamath County? So,
Yeah.
it seems like we've got 2 sides of the issue. All right, what about, what is it? 40, House Bill 4141? Is that the next one?
That is the next one from the assessor's office. I'm just scrolling through. I don't see representative on. Doug, can you provide some background information on these 2 bills with the assessor's office?
Yeah, just really quickly, these bills are supported by Representative James Heeb and Senator Brian Boquist. They made a presentation to the Finance and Revenue Committees last week. The bills essentially reduce the percentage that can be charged for delinquent property taxes from a monthly amount of 1 point something percent to just an annual total amount of 1 point something percent. And so the debate really centers around what is equitable for taxpayers who own delinquent property taxes, as well as the crux of, what is enough of an incentive to get people to continue to pay their property taxes on time, rather than say, hey, I can, the argument was made, hey, I can invest money in the market. If the market goes up by 10%, I can use the money that I would have used to pay my property taxes and just not pay my property taxes and then pay the 1% fine. So interesting argument. I don't think the bills were going anyplace, but they certainly generated quite a bit of interest here in the Capitol.
And I see Robert Tintle has his hand up.
Yes, Robert.
Thank you. Yesterday, we actually met with the Assessors and Tax Collectors Association, met with the state of Oregon as well, and discussed this bill. And just so we know, the delinquent interest is also what funds the CAFA funding that comes to the county to fund the assessor's office and the tax collector's office. And we get about $1 million a year. So if this did go through, it would have, we don't know the impacts, but it would have a reduction in revenue to fund both those offices, which are already underfunded now as it is. But again, at that meeting as well, it was determined that it's not likely this bill will be, the 4141 will be moving forward, because there wasn't even a fiscal impact on that. And the state is doing a 2-year estimate on what their CAFA dollars are going to be, and they're not including this reduction of 1.333% annually instead of per month. So I'm also hoping it doesn't go through, because it would be a reduction in revenue for us supporting the programs, although obviously it's the benefit to the taxpayers.
Is there a recommended position then? Right now, we have no position as a priority, priority 1, no position.
If it's not likely even to move forward, I don't know if we need to dedicate our energy to this.
Yeah, it'll fall off the list next week, I think, or very soon.
And I noticed that Christy Bollinger put a chat item in that we have 75 parks that are
As we
designated.
can move forward with SJR 201.
This was in a
Doug, can you provide further background on this one?
On SJR 201?
Yes.
That's the companion bill to the other bill. So whence goes one, goes the other.
That's all you're going to say, Doug?
Yeah,
Thank you. Sorry for that.
I think they're both going to drop. I don't think either are going anyplace.
Okay, thank you. So do we now go to community justice?
Sorry, I was on
Jen,
mute.
you're on mute.
Page
Also-
6, HB 4120.
Yes, that's what I just, yes. House Bill 4120. Do we have someone from Community Justice? I believe I saw DV on here.
Yeah, sorry about that. I was having mute button issues. This, I believe, relates to people in custody. So I did reach out to the sheriff to see if they had a position on this, you know, knowing that they've got the grant funding related to opioid work with oh gosh, I've forgotten the name, Ideal Options. So they didn't get back to me. I mean, we certainly would support it, but I think the jail is probably the primary entity who would be affected.
Doug, do you have any backstory on this?
Yeah, this is an interesting one. It seems like something that would have gotten a lot of discussion, but it hasn't. It hasn't been scheduled for a hearing. It's been referred to the Judiciary Committee, which means that it stays alive until the very end of the committee, as all bills in that committee tend to do. It's got an interesting list of bipartisan co-sponsors, but the only comment that I got yesterday afternoon when I was asking a colleague about this is that they think that these types of programs will be rolled up into House Bill 4002 or any funding programs dealing with ballot measure 110. So I don't sense any movement on this particular bill. So maybe we just continue to watch it and see if it bubbles up.
Doug, I do want to clarify something. I'd seen something that House Bill 4002 was going to make it a Class A misdemeanor if it was in public transportation. Was that true?
There's a separate bill dealing with public transit that rolls on your third offense for being on public transit and using illicit substances. It would be in essence a Class A misdemeanor under a portion of the transportation statutes. So that is correct, and that bill did pass out of the Senate committee and now heads to the floor. So that's correct.
Thank you. Commissioner Devon?
Just acknowledging to the House Bill 4120, jail-based medication program for opioid use disorder sounds like exactly the path we want to be supporting. And we already, the Sheriff's Office already does this with the medical support that they provide. So yeah, having some backfilled resources for that effort is going to help us. So as I say, we don't know if it's going to be rolled into something or not in the near future, but I'm supportive. So let's make sure to keep an eye on it next week at least.
We were one of only 2 counties in the state that did that. So Janice.
Yeah, just echoing that. I think that this kind of programming may get rolled up into 4002, but 4002 is going to have to find resources for a lot of things. And if there's a separate grant program that helps, justice system partners or corrections partners cover the costs of providing this service in the jail, I think it will help prevent really poor outcomes when people leave jail. And I think the program that our jail is doing right now is really innovative and forward thinking and compassionate and helpful. So any bill like this that might attach a few extra dollars to throw at the system to do this work is worth considering. I don't know if it has a fiscal or if there's an amount proposed, so I haven't looked closely at it.
I know yesterday I've heard of a 32-year-old in that just had an overdose and died. So Commissioner Chang.
I'm not familiar with this bill, so I do have, I'm curious about it. But at the high level, I want to ask the question whether if we are trying, if we are trying to achieve ambitious and significant diversion opportunities related to, in the whole Measure 110 process, then that should mean less people going to jail. So if this is about, supporting people with addiction in jail or on their way out of jail, I guess the key question is, does this take away, Janice was just saying, we're going to need a whole lot of treatment resources in a whole lot of places, but I would be concerned if this competed with expansion of capacity in the diversion pathways. Because in my mind, I believe we are trying to get people diverted out of jail. So if anybody can clarify on that kind of the competition for resources in different, treatment pathways, it would be great to hear.
Janice, do you have an answer?
I don't have an answer. I think it's a really valid question. So if it puts into competition funds to provide treatment and other resources, that's definitely a concern. And maybe that's something Doug can help us run down some details on. The only thing I would say is that even with our best efforts, some of these individuals will end up spending some time in a jail cell, and it's not what any of us wants, but they do land there, and they're likely to land there less frequently with less churn if they get started in treatment while they're in and then connected to resources as they're leaving. So that's what these kinds of programs can do at their best. That's what I hope. So really good question. I'm curious too, Commissioner.
Yeah, no, I mean, definitely sounds worthwhile, but I mean, we have a whole lot of treatment and intervention need, and it'll be really interesting to see how it all, how all those buckets get filled or don't get filled.
It will.
Doug, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, I don't have anything to add. We'll certainly keep looking at it and tracking it. As I said before, I don't think this particular bill is going to move.
Even with all that bipartisan support? Okay, all
Well,
right.
they tend to like packages, so they are, just like they did last session, they're putting lots of items in big packages, and I expect that's what's going to happen with ballot measure 110 and behavioral health and substance abuse treatment.
Okay.
So
Thank
for this bill, am I hearing a priority to watch position from the commissioners?
I'd actually support it. If it's got bipartisan names by it, looks like it might be a good idea.
As I say, we're the window's closed and I don't know if these things moving anywhere, so we can put it on our spreadsheet as a support, and then we'll see where it goes.
Okay. I believe the DA is up next with House Bill 4036. Mr. Gunnels? Oh, there he is. Have you unmuted?
I think I'm unmuted. So
Okay, there-
4036.
Yes.
I'm not seeing that in the list.
It's
I
on
can just-
7.
Oh, I see it. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
So
really quick,
Doug would know better than I do what's moving. My impression is that 4002 is the one that's got legs on it, but Doug would know better than I do.
yeah, that's correct. This bill is not going to move separately. This is the Republican, one of the two Republican or three Republican alternatives to House Bill 4002, but it will not move.
This, from a DA's point of view, this is a better bill than 4002 so far. But 4002 is a work in progress, and there's a lot of negotiation going on with that in every aspect of that bill. There are some concerns that chiefs, sheriffs, DAs, and the League of Oregon Cities have expressed in 4002, and we're trying to work with the legislature to make that bill better.
Okay.
So I'm in that same spot where we can leave it on our list. It's going to have a life of its own. If number 2, support or monitor is fine.
Well, I believe as we heard, what was it, Max Williams say on the Measure 110 or 4002 testimony, that if something isn't done that actually cleans up the situation in the state, they're going to be they're going to get it on the ballot. So that was his testimony at the early part of that evening. Okay, so we next go to, looks like 4,062, House Bill 4,062. It has district attorney by it.
Yeah, let me
Yeah.
just jump in here, and just say this is another one of the Republican package bills that will not move separately. So it's on that, I would say it's on that same list as the one before.
Okay,
This is one that it would set up a task force to determine funding needs for public safety and the whole operation here relies on a amendment to the Oregon Constitution. And so I think I was probably the one who said oppose unless amended. It just seems like the urgency of fixing the current drug laws is greater than setting up a task force and amending the Constitution before anything can happen.
okay. Thank you, Steve. Also, House Bill 4075, it says it's informational. It's also under your purview.
We had Doug who had his hand raised for 4062. I didn't know if he had more input there.
Oh, Doug, do you have more?
Yeah, I think that Steve, actually 4075 is the task force. And 4075 has had a hearing. I don't know if it's going to move. So you had opposed unless amended on 4062.
I
40
apologize.
Yeah, that's okay. 4075 looks to me is the task force. So
I see.
yeah, but I tend to agree with you. I this is kind of falling into that same category as the last couple bills, which is I think they want to do something this session. I don't think they're going to. I think they will continue to study all of these issues, and they may have some study provisions in House Bill 4002, but I don't think 4075 will move individually.
Okay, so now we go to the district attorney again. This is your lucky morning.
Yeah.
House Bill 4121.
Okay, this is a proposal that would tighten up the law regarding what constitutes hemp and what constitutes marijuana, and tighten up restrictions on grow operations and allow better oversight of those grow operations. And so I would be supportive of it. That's a challenge that law enforcement faces when they're trying to investigate these cases. There's the hemp versus marijuana issue that keeps recurring in every investigation that the commission is likely aware of.
And it does say priority two to support. Doug, does this have any life?
Yeah, this bill actually passed 10-0 the other day and heads down to Ways and Means. I'm confused as to why it has to go to Ways and Means, but it got a fiscal impact statement of costing $1 million to implement. So it may be because it requires the Department of Justice to establish new penalties and amend their rules. But that Ways and Means right now and passed on a bipartisan basis out of the committee.
Well, have the cartel operating in Oregon. So perhaps this might be more help for that situation. Commissioner Chang?
So I know that in practice, I've heard from our cannabis advisory panel members that there's technology essentially that can be used to scan material from a hemp production facility to determine whether it has CBD in it. Basically the thing the psychoactive substance that differentiates between hemp and marijuana. So I'm wondering if this bill contains anything about essentially giving people more of the tools that they need to be able to do these field-based or local-based, community-based determinations, or whether it's more on other kind of administrative or judicial dimensions of the issue.
My memory of reading the actual bill is that it does allow that. And the summary here says that it allows law enforcement agencies to accompany the State Department of Agriculture to industrial hemp operations in order to inspect them and make that determination with them.
Yeah, no, I think giving people tools to make these determinations and to keep people from hiding marijuana grow operations inside of hemp operations is a good thing. I was just wondering how the bill works, but what sounds like a thoughtful approach, and I would support that.
Okay, so we'll leave it as 2 support, and it sounds like if it passed out bipartisan 10-0, it might be on its way to being a successful bill in this session.
Yep.
What about House Bill 4144, Mr. Reynolds?
Yeah, this is one that increases penalties for making counterfeit drugs. I'm not exactly sure what this is aimed at. If it's for pill presses that are making what's actually fentanyl pills that are designed to look like other kinds of drugs, I know that's something that we see commonly on the street. They're made to look like Vicodin or something along those lines, which is a lower threat drug, and still a threat, but it's a lower threat drug. If that's what it's designed for, this would be a good bill. I don't know if Doug has any insight into this one.
Doug, do you have insight?
I can share no insight except that I've heard conversations about the need to crack down on pill presses which are being used, because what's flooding into the Portland market right now is not the fentanyl pills. Well, they're flooding in now, but the ingredients that make the fentanyl pills are flooding in. So the only testimony that I heard was something about cracking down on the pill presses used to make those pills, but I don't have any more details behind the bill.
Okay. All right. Well, let's hope that someone's listening to what's happening, and let's do something for the people that are making those pills. Is it okay to leave it on 2 support? I don't see any negative motions.
I saw a thumbs up from Commissioner DeBonne.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, do we have, did we do 4146?
Not yet. This is one that would allow for restraining orders to be filed in the county where abuse occurs. And it's just really a way to make it easier for family abuse in family abuse situations for the victim of abuse to get court orders in either where they reside or where the abuse occurs. So it just makes it a different venue for that. So I've been supportive. The other one is that it changes the definition of unlawful dissemination of an intimate image. Currently, the law would require that the person whose intimate image is disclosed be identifiable, and that it will change that definition to make it more useful, because there are often times where, for example, a face is obscured, but everybody who knows the person knows who it is. And this would allow us to be able to prosecute cases where somebody's image is disseminated against their wishes in that way.
Well, it looks like it has a tremendous list of bipartisan support on it. So, Doug, does it have, as it looks like it's been referred to judiciary, is it on track then?
Yeah, there's work session scheduled for the work session was scheduled for yesterday, so let's see if it passed. That was a late afternoon hearing. I would expect that it passed. Let's see. Passed 10-0 out of the committee.
I would
So-
hope it did.
It's on its way.
Okay, great. Okay, well, Steve, you picked another winner. Okay.
The next bill up is very similar to the first one we discussed, 4062. And it's likely in the same position, that it's probably not going to go anywhere. It just increases penalties for drug crimes. It's a Measure 110 fix, and it also attempts to fix some case law related to delivery of controlled substance to make it a little bit simpler to prosecute cases where deliveries are happening, based on some roadblocks that were put up by the Oregon Supreme Court on that.
Yeah, both of these next two bills are those second and third components of the Republican package that are unlikely to move individually. And but they contain the general provisions of the AOC, LOC, sheriff's, police chiefs proposal. But again, they will not be moving. It'll be the House Bill 4002 that'll be the base bill for whatever comes out of the committee.
Thank you. I do find it fascinating that the DAs, the sheriffs, the police chiefs, LOC and AOC all came together. It's been quite remarkable. Okay, we're down to your last bill. Mr. Gunnels,
It's in the same position. It's
okay.
designed to strengthen drug crime laws, and it's going to be subsumed or rejected by 4002. So
Okay, all right. Well, thank you for being with us. It looks like we're now looking at finance. Robert, House Bill 4056.
Yes, so this one is related to, as a result of the United States Supreme Court decision about foreclosed property that needs to be returned back to the owners. So it appears there was a hearing on this, and the feedback I received from that, I didn't hear it, but the feedback I heard was there were a couple of issues. One is some of the comments kept saying, well, the counties get the money, like a lot of money goes to the counties. Well, they do, we distribute it. I mean, unless, Multnomah that had to carve out where they could use it for affordable housing. But in the past, we've, distributed the money to the to all the districts. We don't hold on to it after we recoup our costs. And secondly, we do a lot of efforts to reach out to the former owner or the owner during the foreclosure process and pre-foreclosure when they're behind. So it sounded, some of the testimony might have been led to believe like there's not a lot of efforts being done. So, but this bill does help address some of the things, a lot of the things that we need to address in light of the Supreme Court decision. And Kim Riley's on here from the legal aspect, and Christy, because they're both involved in, all of us are involved in this bill. So I don't know if they have specific comments they want to make.
Kim, do you have anything you'd like to add?
No, I think Robert captured it well, but it's definitely a bill. It doesn't correct everything that needs to be corrected, I think, with the state's tax foreclosure process, but I think it's definitely a step in the right direction. It provides us some necessary guidance as far as who can file these claims, how long the claims have to be held open, what the distribution process will be going forward. So it's definitely the direction that counties need on how to handle the tax foreclosure process.
Doug, do you know, are the 12 states that have inheritance tax and the 12 states that used to take this property, are they one and the same? Because Oregon's on both of those lists. I want to do an analysis and just see, because it is fascinating. Christy, do you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, so I listened to the hearing yesterday, and there's a good amount of opposition. There's some, special interest groups and whatnot representing general citizens, seniors, and, communities of color, for example, where they're opposing it and they want more time to do a more robust bill. So I think Kim kind of noted that this is just sort of a fix. It's a it's a fix to get through this session, and then in 2025, it'd be a grander fix, but we definitely want to try to get something through this session. So I believe the committee for, let's see, House Committee of Revenue is taking testimony through, I think they said 48 hours. So I did send some kind of follow-up to Robert's points. I sent it over to Michael Burdick with AOC, hoping that maybe he might pass that on. Another concern that the committee had was they kind of expressed that, well, how does the county set the value of the property? So I just shared what we do here at Deschutes County. We involve a real estate broker to help determine the value of the property, and then we reduce that by 20%. And then most cases, though, when we auction the property, we well exceed, we gain back that 20% plus some. So I just shared that and hope that maybe he can pass that on, to the committee to maybe give some, level of comfort. So just wanted to share that.
Thank you, Christy. So we can support this bill as the baby fix, and then we're gonna have a bigger fix.
That's the idea.
Okay, all right. What about the next
Well,
one?
So, pardon me, Commissioner Dara. So I'd support either writing a letter or testifying if something gets interesting here, because there's going to be a real small window to be able to respond to this. It sounds like there's just a lot of common discussions that need to happen to understand, what property and taxes and, who the future looks like. But yeah, I'm just saying, if there's an opportunity to support this, maybe we just take an active position.
Okay. Is there, so we need a letter in another 24 hours? If the hearing was yesterday? Oh, you're on mute, Christy.
My understanding was the committee was going to take testimony for 48 hours from the hearing, but maybe Doug can confirm that. I don't know exactly how that works.
Yeah, you have till Monday afternoon.
So yeah, Robert Tintle, is there points that we want to share? Do you have a feel for that?
I think, maybe just a couple points I made. I think Christie's point's valid. I don't know if legal, again, Kim had said before, like this bill doesn't cover everything, but it is a good bill to get us in there. So yeah, if we need to, Christy and I can work together and draft some letter if that's helpful.
So I'd support that. Monday's a holiday, so today'd be the day for us to be able to do this. But yeah, just the fact that, some of the basic points, but also acknowledging that, this is a bigger discussion, kind of the history of property, foreclosure, taxing, and understanding that counties are not the bad guy. We're the middleman doing the business. So
yeah, and we'll do whatever. We just need the rules to be clear on what we do. And right now there's such ambiguity that we don't have the answers to know what to do.
Definitely, I'm sure we need answers because, as you said, there's a lot of opposition on the testimony. What about House Bill 4065 then? If you can do the letter today, that would be excellent.
Yeah.
I'll just point out really quickly, just before we get into it too much, that this is one of those housing bills that probably will not advance as an individual bill, but will likely be rolled into whatever the housing package is if they so choose it. So this is an infrastructure bill, sets up a grant process, would be funded at a certain level, but all those issues are probably going to be taken care of in the larger package.
Right, and I'd say that's probably the same with 1528 that's on this list also. It's a separate smaller bill, but really the one we should talk about on the next page then is 1530, or next couple, page 1537 on page 15. This is the packaged bill, I guess, as Doug would say. And the part that's included in this, I just wanted to flag for the commissioners, is there's a housing proposal for it's a workforce housing loan program from the state for the up to 120% income from that provides grants to counties or cities that can set up a program that would provide basic loans to the developers. We get involved, we administer the program. 1% can be allocated to the counties to administer the program. I mean, there's a lot in the packaged bill. I'm only speaking to the housing part. The Association of County Treasurers, actually, they don't support this mechanism, the part of the bill, but they don't oppose it because getting affordable workforce housing is a great need. However, the mechanism of withholding funds isn't how they do it. It's placing a fee. It's actually pretty complicated. I don't know how to say it simply. Maybe Doug knows it in a concise manner, but it holds fire districts whole. However, the rest of the taxing districts, it's less money to them, and the county would still collect a fee that's put on the assessor's bill, on the tax bill, that we would forward back to the state to pay back the loan. Doug, maybe more concise I mean, it's a big bill, covers a lot of other things, but that's part of it.
Doug, do you have anything you can clarify?
Yeah, well, the only thing I'd add, so the issue is if you're raising fees and doing a grant program and accepting more revenue, cities and counties sometimes jump into compression. So I think it's like in urban renewal district, you have to get the special districts to approve it. In this case, they're exempting the fire districts because fire districts, for instance, in Central Oregon, fire districts and local fire departments are responding to the homeless crisis more than ever before. So I think that's why they decided to exempt them. We'll say that on this bill, this bill's $350 million. It's a large package, but that's $150 million less than the governor requested. So she's not particularly happy about that. But I think some additional funds will be added back in Ways and Means for some of the other projects. So my guess is this is kind of the floor, and the package that we see come out at the end of the session will be a little higher. But this is the catch-all. It's got the Housing Accountability Office, the HAPO. It has, requirements that cities accept variance proposals from developers. It has a section in the bill which allows for a one-time expansion of UGBs of either 100 acres or 50 acres, which is lower than had originally been proposed based on the size of the city. In Central Oregon, it's not particularly useful because it's only for cities that haven't expanded your urban growth boundary in the past 20 years. So with the growth that's been taking place in Central Oregon, that is not particularly applicable. Most cities, I think all cities in Central Oregon have expanded their UGBs. But it broadly impacts both cities and counties and the land use process, and is a very detailed bill. But this bill is on the fast track, a train running down the tracks, and will be enacted at some point in the next 3 weeks.
Okay, Doug, that was really not what I wanted to hear about the UGB expansion. So thank you for telling me what they did to that one.
Commissioner Chang has his hand up.
Oh, sure. Commissioner Chang.
I had a couple questions. First off, Doug, we've been hearing about the pretty robust revenue projections for the state, and a couple of times in recent months you've mentioned how the legislature is sitting on a decent amount of funds that they could be deploying to various kinds of important projects, but have been pretty restrained. And I'm sorry, I'm not going to get all the titles and terminology correct, but can you I'm curious why this package was shaved down from 500 million to 350 million, and what are the possibilities for bringing that back up, because 350 million is good, but I mean to generate tens of thousands of housing units across the state of Oregon, it's not that much money. So could you speak about that a little bit? And then I also wanted to ask about, well, I can wait till the end of that to ask my other question about the UGB expansion.
Thanks, Commissioner. A couple of things. You're right. The revenue forecast was up, I think, more than expected. It depends on whose numbers you're using, but I think the kind of middle of the road number is that the budget, the available resources for this biennium are up by $536 million over the expectation at the end of the last session. So since June of 2023 to the revenue forecast of February, the estimate is that the state will bring in about $500 million more revenue. Now, some of that will create a kicker for the next biennium. So they, at one point, we're going to have a gigantic kicker for taxpayers this year. There was an assumption that we wouldn't hit the kicker next session, but it looks like we're going to hit the kicker. And so that is going to require the legislature to retain some revenues in the state to be able to pay for that portion that has to go back to the taxpayers. So that's one issue. The second issue is that the governor was asking for, she had one bill and it was housing, and she basically was requesting that all the resources that the state, extra resources the state, go into housing. But on the other side, and other issues we've been talking about today, with substance abuse treatment needs, shelter needs, those types of things in behavioral health, mental health, workforce issues, those issues also need to be covered by the legislature. So I think what they're trying to do is balance the two needs, recognizing that they don't fix the drug crisis, they'll have more people needing housing or more people being homeless. So I think that's if you were to ask the leadership in the building, those would probably be the answers they'd give you. But I'd say the other thing I'd say is let's wait until after the Ways and Means process concludes, because I think that what we're going to see is some funding put back into housing and homelessness in areas that are different than what the governor asked for, but no less impactful. For instance, specific infrastructure projects that can be implemented immediately in cities that could generate housing. That wasn't in the governor's package, but the legislature believes that those kind of immediate, get the money on the ground within 60-day type of proposals will make a difference. Hopefully that helps.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and including some of the packages we're tracking from, or including some of the specific shovel-ready projects we're tracking from around Deschutes County, I'm guessing.
Correct.
Okay, and then on the other question, last I heard, that the UGB expansion was available for cities that had done more recent UGB expansions if they had utilized a certain amount of the land within that UGB in this, in a recent time frame. So is that did that get stricken out, or were you just talking high level?
Yeah, Commissioner, I think you're correct. There are shades of gray in the definitions, and in talking to the League of Cities this week, they're unhappy with the way that language was structured because it creates ambiguity. But I think you're correct that there's a case to be made that Central Oregon cities could consider applying for that one-time expansion, and we'll have to wait and see what the final language is going to be. My understanding is they're still working on that particular section to try to make people happy.
Yeah. I would, since this is being, currently debated, and I know that there's a lot of pressure from the cities to actually get a UGB expansion opportunity that they can use. I know there's a lot of pressure from 1,000 Friends of Oregon, essentially to not create something that anyone can actually use. I think it would be really helpful for us to weigh in, on that specific piece of this bill, and would just float that idea to my fellow commissioners. Write a letter, or provide some testimony at this point in time, even just on that specific point of, wanting to have a one-time UGB expansion opportunity that our communities can actually use. And I think that could be very helpful both to the city of Bend and the city of Sisters.
Mr. DeBonne, do you have any feedback on that?
It's interesting because City of Bend, has done their UGB expansion I mean, I'm kind of neutral on it. You know, City of Lapine is going to be able to build internal for the next 20 years, probably easily. City of Redmond has their urban reserve. So I don't know that this is our domain to get in the middle of as commissioners.
Oh,
I mean,
I
it's
would definitely write the letter for the city of Bend because the Gales property is 1,425 feet outside. And that would really be helpful. And then also the single wide manufactured home project is also right next to the line. So I'm happy. I would
And yeah,
be-
I'm not opposed to that. I mean, if there's a reason, you know, specialty
I have two
UTV,
reasons on
that's
different.
fine. And I support both those reasons.
Okay.
And we have been doing, you know, we have done hundreds of acres of comp plan amendments and rezones right next to the city of Bend's urban growth boundary in just the couple of years that I've been on the Board of Commissioners. And I would really like to see a very direct and rapid pathway to bring some of that into the urban growth boundary. So, you know, that's kind of the county nexus in my opinion.
Just a quick question. Has Doug, has Coco written a letter on behalf of multiple cities that we could just sign on to? Or, I mean, as opposed to, not to say that we couldn't go solo, but it seems like, you know, we're supporting their initiatives for our collective housing. Just curious.
No, we hadn't taken, we've talked about the issue at the Coco board meeting, but they had not decided to write a letter at this point. I don't think they'd object to a letter. It's probably something that they would be supportive of, but I could ask that question.
Could you ask them, Doug? That would be great. All right. So we're at 9:01.
Yeah, so just to circle back on 1537, did the commissioners want to take a position on this one? It sounded like there may have been consensus for a position, but I just wanted to confirm.
I believe we would like to write a letter to support the UGB issue.
Okay, so we'll do 2 support, and then Doug will check with Coco to see if there's an existing letter that we can sign on to, and if not, we'll look at next steps for individual letter. Great.
Right. He said there was a letter. He would ask them if they would sign on to our letter, maybe, perhaps. Or we could write a joint letter. Whatever carries more weight.
And then we have 3 bills left to review, but we can wait until next week to review them if we want to wrap on time today.
Any emergencies on these 3 bills? I noticed one was health services, has none. HR has one, informational. It's a 2. There's a legal 2, and then there's a natural resources 1 bill 2. Are any of you wanting to say something very rapidly?
I was just going to chime in on the legal one. That was the same bill that was discussed with finance relating
Okay.
to property taxes.
Okay, so we covered that. Okay, good. Thank you, Kim. All right, so we will postpone. Kathleen, are you okay?
I'm absolutely fine waiting. Then there's actually a couple of others that have come up since, so it would be good to maybe postpone until next time and we can talk about all of them then.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
And probably at this time, just looking for requests to either write a letter of support or opposition or testify. You know, so I'm just thinking that's a good priority because the window's closing fast on the short session.
Okay.
So quick question. So Doug, do you have any guidance? I signed up for testimony on the capital construction, and I found out afterwards, you know, Mayor Fitch and Tammy Bainey are going to speak on it also. Should I still step in and give them a thumbs up after 2 other people speak?
Commissioner, thanks for that question. I think that Tammy is going to try to coordinate messages. The only advice that I got from the Ways and Means Committee yesterday is that they're limiting it to 3 minutes per project,
Yeah.
not
Oh,
per
okay.
witness. So
Oh.
if 2 of them give a 1 and 30-second testimony,
Got
you
it.
give 20-second testimony, I think that's beneficial to show the breadth of support.
Okay, yeah, so yeah, we'll coordinate with Tammy, and then, as I say, I might not testify, but we'll see if there's an opportunity, I will. Okay.
Great. Thank you all.
Thank you.